In this lecture, we're going to customize the photo gallery. So here we have our heading. This is another H2, just like the product info. Then below we have a set of images, for which we can certainly improve the presentation. Just like our final design here. So now we're going to look at the code. So we have the second div with 6 columns that includes a div for the gallery. Inside this gallery, we have rows that itself, for the first one, includes 2 images. Then we have a second row that also includes 2 images. And we have another div in the middle with the class of margin, although we don't understand yet the purpose of it, because we haven't set any rules for this margin class yet. First, the goal is to add some space between those 2 rows. So we have a first row with 2 images, and then below we have another row with 2 other images. So in order to add some margin for this class margin, we're going to go to our custom CSS file. So we're going to write some rules for this class margin. So we're going to write margin, and we're going to add 3% margin for the top and bottom, and we're going to leave it as 0 for left and right. And now, so now perfect, we have some space between those 2 rows. That looks much better. And we also would like to change the presentation of these images by adding some rounded corners, just like these examples. And on the Bootstrap site, under the CSS page, we're going to find the options for the image shapes. So first we have image rounded. So we're going to use this one, copy it. Then paste it back in our code, so inside the image element. For all of them, we're going to save, then go back to our design, then reload the page. Here it is, so we have reloaded the page, although there is not much of a difference. And that's probably because the dimensions of the picture are bigger than the parent div. So we're going to check this out by going to the inspect element, the inspector tool. So you're going to click right and click inspect element. And we're going to look for the right element, so the images inside the row, so this div with the class of row. And then we're going to find out that the settings of this image is 6 columns. And the original settings by Bootstrap probably do not allow to leave enough space for the image. So we're going to find out by going to compute it. We're going to scroll down and see that for each image we have 15 pixels of padding around. The padding that have been added by the Bootstrap styling are overlapping on the image, and we're going to see that when we remove the padding, we can see the entire image with the rounded corners. We're going to check out for the second image again to do a similar demonstration. Here as well, we're going to remove the padding and see what happens. The original setting of Bootstrap needs to add some padding in order to create a space between the 2 elements inside a row, so that's why we couldn't apply the image rounded. In other words, we could apply it, although it wasn't taking any effect. So for that, we can remedy by customizing this style. By still selecting the image, we're going to go find the style for the image rounded. So we're going to go scroll down and try to look up for image rounded. So here it is. We can read that right now this is at 6 pixels. Directly from the browser, we have the possibility to tweak it. So we're going to try another value, 15 pixels for example, to see if that makes any difference. So there is no change, so we're going to try something different, and this time percentage. So 10% looks fine. So we're going to copy the same style and paste it in our custom file. So back in our code editor, we're going to add this style, so inside our custom.css file, so for image rounded, 10% for the border radius. So that looks fine now. We are close to a better presentation. Also, we want to change the style of the heading. So this H2 for the gallery, we want to make it similar to the product info style. So we're going to copy from here. So here we go, we're going to reload the page, and here it is. Now we have a nice heading, H2, which is similar to the product info section, and we also have a nice gallery of pictures. To finish, I wanted to add another touch and lower the opacity of the images. To create an effect of the images lighting up whenever the user is hovering over an image. So we're going to go to our custom.css file. We're going to use the same class ImageRounded. And right under border radius, we're going to add another line. This is going to be opacity. The value set to opacity can be anywhere from 0 to 1. 0 will be transparent and 1 will be completely opaque. So for this example, we're going to apply 0.8, which is going to slightly fade the tone of the image. Also, we want these images to be bright again, as if they were lighting up, whenever the user is hovering over. And for that, we're going to add another rule. We're going to use the same class of ImageRounded, to which we're going to add the pseudo class hover, meaning that any style added to this selector will apply only when the image is hovered over. And we're going to change the opacity to 1. And the result will be that every time a user hovers over an image, this image will no longer be transparent. So now back to the browser, we're going to reload and try this out. So here it is. So now every time we hover over an image, it looks like this is lighting up. So that looks quite nice. One note about the way we achieved the hover effect. In order to achieve this effect, we've used the class of ImageRounded, which is fine because that was the only location where we had used this class of ImageRounded. Although you could be in the situation of working on larger projects with several lines of codes. And there is a high probability that you would be using the same class several times in several locations in your web page. In that case, we would recommend to be more specific whenever you want to target one element. An alternative way to achieve the hover effect would be to target the images inside the div with an ID of gallery. And the goal here is that we only want to target images elements inside the div with an ID of gallery. So inside our custom.css file, we would use another selector, which would be the ID gallery and the selector for images. And we're going to use the exact same properties that we had under ImageRounded. We're going to paste them inside. And the same for the hover with the pseudo hover. We're going to add the same and add the same pseudo class. And then also we're going to copy the same properties and then paste back inside this selector. Finally, we're going to cut these lines of codes. So that's probably safe to go that way. Try to be as specific as possible, provided that you were to work on a much larger project. And for your information, upon watching the next videos, we're going to keep the same lines of code, so just keep that in mind.